this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic, we will learn the true meaning of recycling to create even bigger explosions, of course. What did you think I was gonna say? Keeping the environment clean? Pfft, we got way more important things to do, like making big sexy explosions with our big zombie crit ward stacking Dreadshade recycling Necromancer. Before we get into the video, if you've been enjoying the steady flow of Last Epoch content lately, I'd suggest leaving a like on the video, as that's the best way to support the channel. So zombies have been a pet favorite of mine, and I have been farming for months for a Logi's hunger to drop, so I could go crit zombies. Because sadly, they only have 5% base crit to start out with, and almost no way to add more. That's why we're running a Logi's hunger. This means currently we are reaching 40% chance to crit, which is kind of okay. I don't have minion crit on my chest, so that's a big multiplier we're missing currently, which will get us to like 50%. But even 40% chance is enough to absolutely demolish most things. The interaction the build is built around is Dreadshade and how it can summon zombies and skipping the mana cost. This is very good for us as we want to make big explosions, and big zombies have the biggest of them all. This gives zombies 300% more mana cost per zombie, meaning that without the Dreadshade interaction, we would not be able to sustain the big zombies. But Dreadshade gained a new node inside of it that states 100% chance to summon a Volatile Zombie when a minion with Dreadshade placed on it dies. This means every time a minion dies, we will get a zombie. This also means Big Daddy zombies, which means as long as we make sure to place a Dreadshade on the zombie before he blows up, it means we have infinitely recyclable zombies. Very environmentally friendly for sure. Big zombies deal a lot of damage in a large area, meaning we don't need to have as many zombies out. For most bosses, just recycling the same zombie over and over again is completely fine, as you can see in the Orbis clip. For clear, we prefer to have 2 zombies so that we can juggle between them to increase our clear speed and help our ward generation. So we do run a small ward package with the Frostbite Shackles and ward on zombie death. I'll be honest, I'm not very confident in this version of the ward stacking, at least in a low budget, so I'll be supplying an HP version of this build in the description as well, which should be infinitely cheaper and probably better in most cases. Although I could see the ward numbers getting close to 7-8k if we invested a small bit more into ward retention and minion health. It's very easy just to swap to HP stacking instead, as you simply just heal to full whenever a zombie dies, which is probably preferred. The playstyle of this build is a bit more active than most Necromancers, as you need to make sure you slap on Dreadshade on each minion for every pack. But it's still way more better than like AFK wise than like skeletons, because skeletons are kind of annoying to handle, as casting Dreadshade is pretty easy most of the time. It does auto target, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The main problem with Dreadshade is it always targets the minion nearest your cursor, and will reapply Dreadshade even if there are other minions without Dreadshade around it, meaning you need to move your cursor around a little to the zombie you want to place the Dreadshade on, which is a little bit of a juggle when you have 2 of them, but when you only have 1, it's easy peasy. Definitely an APM check though. The last thing I will talk about in the intro is the weapon we are using. We are using an Aberrant's Call. Who knew that this was better on zombies than wraiths, huh? The mana regen is amazing as it helps us sustain spamming Dreadshade and being able to summon zombies to kickstart the recycling process, as you need to summon extra zombies every so often to make your monos go faster, as sometimes your zombies get caught on mobs and you just want to run through the mono, so you just summon a new zombie instead. This on top of the hefty 120% increased minion damage is neat, but these are very easy to farm. I've gotten like 6 so far with legendary potential, and they seem to drop all the time. So I've been able to farm a few for minion spell damage percentage, which is absolutely insane as it turns Aberrant's Call from meh to absolutely your best in slot, as it not only saves your prefixes from having to run mana regen, it also gives you a crap load of damage you wouldn't have otherwise. And if you can get some cast speed with minion spell damage on top, oh boy, you're actually like set to go. With all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build, and as you can tell, I have a new sexy chair I got this for Christmas. It was like about $200, and my girlfriend's mom gave it to me. Absolutely wonderful chair. I was getting very sick and tired of sitting on a lawn chair, and I also got some new shirts. So that's it's been a really nice Christmas for me. So, for the zombie skill rotation. So for normal monolith gameplay, you want to simply summon a zombie, and as it attacks something, before it gets back up, you want to put Dreadshade on it, and you can repeat infinitely exploding zombies, as you can tell, and they're doing ridiculous amounts of damage. Now, the thing is, this is also missing the 60% more against bosses and rares. So, as you can tell, we'll be doing plenty of damage. The main problem is we only have like 30 to 40% chance to crit currently with my setup, which is kind of pathetic, but you can get up to 50% very easily if you just simply get minion crit instead of what I have on this chest. But yeah, that's pretty much it for monolith gameplay. You just summon like 2 zombies, keep the buffs up on them. You want to like juggle the buffs, and that's pretty much it. And that's how you do monos. You know, transplant a little bit, stuff like that. That's simple. Now on bosses, you literally just have 1 zombie. You don't need more than 1 zombie, trust me. And you just cycle through, and that's it. And you do plenty of single target damage. So yeah, as you can tell, I've got getting a decent amount of ward. This isn't as much ward. This is a lot more what I call effective ward. So there's a lot of builds that can build up a lot of ward over time, but this build specializes in being able to make a bunch of ward quickly, as you can tell, which in most situations is better than ward that just builds up over time. Like for instance, the low life shenaniganry, because guess what? When I do get hit, I'll just gain my ward right back. And that's way more important than just having a bunch of ward, right? But yeah, other than that, let's get into the skill, shall we? So for Volatile Zombie itself, one thing I will note before we get into everything, you do not want 5 points in Forceful Commander. Forceful Commander makes it so that, give me a second. Oh, die, stupid shits. Die already. Come on. Thank you. All right. It makes it so when you summon a zombie, it goes slower. You don't want the zombie to be fast. You want the zombie to be slow. That's what this means when it says summoning speed. You want the zombie to be slow because if you are on a singular target, which I'll show you, what will happen is if he's too fast, he's way too fast for you to put Dreadshade on him. Does that make sense? So generally, you want to be able to slap on Dreadshade. And the problem is, if you have too much summoning speed, it will summon too quickly, and you will not get the Dreadshade off quick enough to do it on a single target. So definitely do not put more nodes into more points in this node. I was trying to get it 5 and it felt terrible. You don't care about the mana efficiency because obviously, you know, infinite zombies, you don't really care about the mana. So that's like fine. So yeah, you just ignore this node. Then 3 points into Grave Attunement. We just want more damage. The reduced movement speed doesn't really matter, which I'll show you soon. 1 point into Giant Zombies. So this node was nerfed. It used to be a lot less HP and stuff, but this is like acceptable as the 100% more damage and health both affect your damage and your ward. The area is insane. I'll throw 1 big zombie into a pack and he'll kill the whole pack, which is really cool. And of course, 300% mana cost is insane, but like I said, we don't really care because we just summon 1 zombie and we keep just infinitely recycling them, which is actually poggers, which is nice. Then of course, 1 point travel into Daunting Blast, 2 points into Ravenous. This is what gives us all of our boss DPS. That's why you only ever need 1 zombie for your bosses, because he just does so much damage to bosses and rares that you just keep recycling and the boss eventually dies. And you get to do this at range. It's not like you don't have to be sitting right next to the enemy. Like you could just keep doing this infinitely while the boss is away, right? Which is rather amusing. You don't have to be even nearby the boss. Your cast speed should be good enough to the point where you can like kind of like stutter step as you do it. And this is actually a very friendly boss killer, which is nice because of that. And of course, 5 points into Fervor. We want the more movement speed so our zombies are faster. Then the 1 point to Voracious Horde. This is 100% mandatory. You want this node because it just gives your zombies a bunch of movement speed as they lose life. I'll show you. This is his normal movement speed. right here. And then I'm going to just let him take some damage here. Show you his movement speed when he's really low. That's his movement speed when he's very low. So you definitely want this node. This makes it so your zombies are quicker to clear packs, which is cool. Then 4 out of 5 points of Path of Destruction. If you have plus to zombies, which I don't, you'd probably put the 5th point into this for even more destruction area. 2 points into Necromantic Further. This makes it so 2% of your zombies' health is turned into ward. And then, of course, 1 point to Vital Ward. Now, healing effectiveness affects this portion, but it will not affect the ward. We don't know if that's on purpose or not, but that is correct. You will not get healing effectiveness for the ward, so you don't care about healing effectiveness. Although if you're doing the HP version, you do care about healing effectiveness, and that's pretty much it for zombies. Then for the transplant here, it's your stereotypical transplant tree. The only difference is we're grabbing the mana here. It's just to help us sustain our dread shade. Every like 5 seconds we just use our dread shade and stuff, and we're completely fine. Nothing problems there. Get us some more cast speed thanks to this node, which is really good because we don't have much cast speed if we don't have a cast speed Aberrant Skull. So definitely good there. The increased minion damage is obviously really strong, as well as we don't have much space to put increased minion damage. Then for Rip Blood, this is your stereotypical Rip Blood tree. This is literally just for you're getting ward off of Transplant. There's no other reason to run this. There's no other skills you want, because if you have other minions, it will try to steal your Dreadshade buffs, and you don't want your other minions to steal your Dreadshade buffs. So I would heavily suggest not running other minions. What is nice about it is if you do, for some reason, accidentally run out a bunch of mana, you can just simply use Rip Blood to gain a bit of mana back. So that's always a good option. Then Aura of Decay, this is literally just for poison res and poison resistance and all that. This is just for your stereotypical poison monos, like the poison spires, so you don't instantly die against them. Like I said, there's not really much else to grab, so you might as well grab something that helps you out, and this is one of those things that helps you out. Then Dread Shade, this is a little different. So you take 2 points travel into Wisdom of the Dead, 1 point into Conflagration of Shades, which is nice because it gives you up to 4 shades, I believe. 2 points travel into Frenzied Phantom, then 4 points into Beyond Death, which makes it so that whenever we place our Dread Shade on any enemy, like any minion, when he dies, as you'll see, he will summon another zombie from his corpse. And why that's so strong is because it allows us to simply infinitely make zombies. I don't know why this not make you cast the mana from it, but you know, I'm not gonna complain. 3 points travel into Lingering Doom, although the flat necrotic is very strong. Then 1 point into All for One. We don't really care about the buffs for us because we're never near our zombies anyways, or at least we shouldn't be for the cast speed and all that. So the 60% more damage is obviously a really good node. 1 point travel into Spectral Presence, 2 points travel to Dying Coven. We don't care about attack or cast speed because the zombies themselves, they don't attack. They just blow up, right? 3 points into Grim Fate. If you have +2 to Dreadshade, I'd put 1 point in Grim Fate extra, then 1 point in Flesh Harvest. So this is just more damage, and this just gives you even more damage. So it gives you increased buff effect for each 3% of missing health. If you have 2 points in it, which you hopefully will, if you have +2 to Dreadshade eventually on like a chest with like you'd seal a chest with like crit and like minion health, and then of course you run a Dreadshade level. This is really strong because every 3% it's missing, and as you can tell, as the zombie is losing HP, you know, he'll gain more damage. And this will apply to the All for One, it will apply to the flat necrotic, it'll apply to the increased necrotic, it'll apply to the 10 flat necrotic, it will apply to the 45% or 60% more damage. So if your zombies are standing for a bit, they will do significantly more damage, which I'll show you in a second. If you know it crits for me, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. If it would ever crit, that's the only problem with this build, is you kind of have inconsistent crits. But the zombies, there you go, the zombies do so much damage that it doesn't really matter per se, because it's like, well, they do so much damage that even if they're not critting all the time, right, it's fine. Pretty much just think of the 40% chance to crit as like 40% chance to double or triple your damage, which in Path of Exile is a really good stat. So it's a really good stat here. as you can tell. So it's completely fine. Like, look at that. We crit most of the time, which is all that matters, right? We just need it for the big damage. And that's pretty much it for Dreadshade, I believe. Yep. And let's talk about passive. So for the passive tree, we take 8 points into Forbidden Knowledge for the intelligence and necrotic res, mainly for the intelligence, because intelligence not only gives us ward retention, which is important for this version, it also gives us minion health and minion damage. So all three of those stats matter to us. So intelligence stacking is the way to go with this build. 5 points into Dark Rituals for increased minion attack speed, minion cast speed. This is actually for us, so as long as we're casting a zombie, we actually get more cast speed, like every 10 seconds. So you want to at least try to, spam it every 10 seconds, right? 10 points into Mania of Mortality. This makes it so whenever you kill a pack, you get a bunch of ward, which is cool. 5 points into Unnatural Preservation, because we want as much ward retention as possible. Then for Lich, we want 10 points into Apocrypha. Not only does the mana regen help us, but the intelligence is absolutely insane for us. Then 5 points into Gravethorns. We want as much minion health as possible. We actually don't grab Risen Army because the increased attack and cast speed don't matter for us. Then 5 points into Reclamation of Souls. This just gives us even more ward retention and ward. 1 point travel into Blood Armor because we don't need it. 10 points into Mortal Tether, which will increase the ward we get from our zombies, which is really strong. 4 points into Mark of Punishment. We're having zombies die all the time, so applying Mark for Death to bosses is really cool. 5 points into Frantic Summons because we want as much cast speed as possible so that we can make sure that we land the Dreadshade buff before the zombie goes off. So we want as much cast speed as possible because of that. 5 points into River of Bones to give us even more minion crit. The minion leech doesn't matter because they die. 10 points into Moonlight Pyre for a bunch of flat. This minion necrotic damage is especially strong because it gets affected by the Dreadshade buff as well. 10 points into Rite of Undeath. We're doing necrotic and fire for most of our damage. You do a little bit of physical though, but mainly necrotic and fire. So this is just a bunch of damage and resistance. 10 points into Heresy. We want as much minion crit as possible, so that's why we're grabbing this. Also, as well, intelligence is absolutely insane for us. Then 10 points into Blade of Forlorn, so minion crit, multi, and minion chill chance, which both are really strong options for us. And that's pretty much it for the passive tree. Now, for the gearing here, my gear, other than the uniques I have, are garbage, right? You do not need a Logi's Hunger. You do not need a Frostbite Shackles. Logi's Hunger just makes it so you crit more often, so your damage is more consistent. Frostbite Shackles is for the more ward retention, if you're playing the ward version. And Aberrant's Call is probably necessary. You at least need a base Aberrant's Call, in my opinion, because it gives you enough mana regen to sustain Dreadshades and, summoning big zombies. And of course, the minion spell damage is insane. That's what I would go for first, and then cast speed after this. And that's pretty much it. That's all you really need with this. And minion spell damage on this is insane, as you can tell. The minions lose 6% of their current life per second. Doesn't matter because we're playing zombies and they die anyways. So who cares, right? So Aberrant's Call actually becomes one of the best weapons for us for this build, and actually somewhat enables it as well. Helmet, you want Volatile Zombie level, intelligence, minion health, and then minion crit. You want minion crit mainly. Then cold res. I have really bad gear. You could easily improve the amount of ward you get from your zombies by just adding a bunch of minion health, some cold res and stuff. So as you can tell, my gear's kind of ass for that. Logi's Hunger, mainly this gives us 3% base crit for our zombies. I can show you on my tree, 35%, 22%. So that's a large amount of crit that we'd be missing otherwise. So very, very important later on to get a Logi's. You should be farming it. This should be the first thing you farm. And then, of course, a legendary Aberrant's Call should be the second. Then, of course, eventually Frostbite Shackles. I would heavily suggest the HP version first, and then swapping into the cold res version with Frostbite Shackles later on, if you have the budget. And then, of course, that would feel a lot better, I think. So I'd heavily suggest doing the HP version first. Intelligence, minion. I'm missing minion crit, but you'd want intelligence and minion crit. And then resistance, you want cold res base, yada, yada, yada. It's like, it's pretty simple there. Ring, intelligence, minion health, and then resistance, at least one cold res roll. Then, of course, for the belt, minion damage, minion health, or you can run mana regen as well if you feel like as though you don't have enough. Then resistance, because you want the cold res. Obviously, I don't have that. This ring is almost perfect. If it was rolled better, like absolutely perfect. This is exactly what you want to be looking for. Frostbite shackles, of course. If you're running the HP version, you don't need these. Boots, movement speed, intelligence, cold res, resistance, cold and crit avoid probably eventually. Then for the relic, you want the minion HP, movement speed, damage one. Then of course minion health, intelligence, resistance, mainly cold res to stack with frostbite shackles. Like I said, the finished build planner below will show you exactly what you need. So I would heavily suggest looking at that. And if you want to know what to run on a Frostbite Shackles for Legendary, it would be cast speed, minion health, and intelligence. And then for the Logi's Hunger, you want probably minion health and minion damage. But, if you don't get that, or you can get cold rest too. Either way, like it doesn't really matter what you get on your Logi's Hunger. If you do eventually get a legendary, if you're that lucky, anyways, because it's very expensive to do so. And that's pretty much it. If you want a legendary farmer, if you want a build that can farm legendary, well, farm for like exalted items quickly, like I did. There's also the Abomination build, which I heavily suggest as well to have one for the farming, but there are plenty of other T4 dungeon Jurla farmers. Now for idols, we want 2 minion crit idols, then 4 large minion crit idols, and that will give you a lot more crit chance than I currently have. You'd have like 50%, and it'd be insane. Of course, you can run these increased area AoE things until you get more crit chance with more crit idols. I just don't have them all, obviously, but you can run one of these until you get more, right? And that's pretty much it for the gearing. That's pretty much it for the video. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was a little bit of a scatterbrained one because, my gear is absolutely terrible, but this is just a proof of concept to showcase you guys that yes, this build is very good if you can get the right gear, which I don't have currently at the moment, which I'm currently farming for. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.